And now, almost three-quarters of guide dog owners say members of the public distract their dogs while working at least once a day. That's despite the danger to the dog and to the owner. And as part of their Don't Dive on the Dog initiative, guide dogs are encouraging the public to keep a respectful distance from guide dogs. I don't think it's very much to ask for, if I'm honest. Well, joining me now is Chris Towers from Bradford. Chris is a speaker for guide dogs and has experienced people distracting his dog when he's out in public. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Looking forward to the weekend.
Oh, absolutely. This is a big thing that we do on Friday where I ask everyone whether you're having a big, a medium or a small weekend. Chris, what's it looking like for you?
Well, I've actually got a 5-day weekend because it's half-term week, so
That's
I'm not back in.
A massive weekend, yeah.
It is, yeah. We've not got massive plans at the moment, but yeah, no, I'm sure we'll do plenty of fun stuff with my wife and children.
Chris, that's amazing. I wish I could speak all about your weekend the entire time that we're here. But I do want to ask you about guide dogs as well. Can you tell us a bit about yourself first, Chris? When did you first get your dog?
So I got my very first guide dog, Jaeger, 4 years ago now. I know what you're all thinking. I say Jaeger, you say bomb. He actually takes his name after apparently takes his name from the robot in the film Pacific Rim. A little boy named him.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
But
quite higher brow than what we were all thinking, but yeah, I like it.
It's what I get everywhere I go, but it's great. He's got such a unique name, such a great talking point, and he's a great character. He's lovely.
And I understand that Jaeger wasn't your first guide dog, but your first ever dog, because you were actually scared of dogs before that.
I certainly was. So when I was younger, one of my friend's dogs, obviously not a guide dog, but yeah, one of my friend's dogs actually bit me when I was about 8 years old. So
Wow.
I did have a massive phobia of dogs, well, for most of my life, to be honest. So to kind of take that step to get a guide dog and just be around a dog, full time and all the care and attention that you need to give them, it was quite a big step, really. But I have to say, it's one of the best things I've ever done. Certainly, not going to look back and certainly wouldn't be without him now.
Yeah, and that's really lovely to hear. But how did you sort of get used to Jaeger, I suppose? Was there any training or anything that you had to get used to before getting him?
Yeah, so I got the opportunity to meet Jaeger. It always makes me laugh because when they match you with a guide dog, they will very much sort of call you and say, look, can we bring the dog out to meet you, see if you're suitable, a nice little match for each other, make sure he's the right height for you, does he walk at the right pace for you, all that kind of thing. But it is kind of like a test drive. It's like buying a car. It's, is this suitable for you? And so, yeah, they come out, you kind of get used to them then. And then I kind of set myself a goal. I'm kind of one of those people that likes to challenge myself. And my ultimate goal was I wanted to be able to pick my girls up from school independently. And so with that kind of in my mind, I thought, well, I'm just going to throw myself into this. I know a little bit about guide dogs. I know they're friendly dogs. They're extremely well trained. So I'm just going to go with it and see. And like I say, I won't be without him now.
And I imagine you're picking the kids up from school all the time now with Jaeger.
I certainly was, yeah, quite frequently. In fact, I did the school run this morning. And of course, we are extremely popular in the playground.
Can imagine.
But to be fair, the children are usually extremely good. I've been in a couple of times to talk to the children, explain all about Jaeger's important role. And they all are very respectful. And if they do want to come and say hello, they do always come and speak to me first and ask if it's okay if they can say hello to him.
Well, that's really interesting that you're saying the kids are actually really well behaved and sensible around Jaeger, because this is what we're hearing now, that almost 3/4 of guide dog owners are saying members of the public are distracting the dogs while they're working. Is that something that you've been through and you've experienced?
Absolutely, all the time, and it's quite commonly the adults. I mean, I often hear phrases like, "I know I shouldn't, but I will."
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if you know you shouldn't, then obviously, kind of
then don't.
act on what you're thinking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think I noticed it the most after the pandemic, and whether it's kind of like the excitement of people being able to go back out after lockdown. But we went to a local shopping centre in Bradford as a family, and at first usually, obviously, if you go, you kind of notice the odd sort of person trying to talk to the dog or approach the dog, and you don't think too much of it. It's kind of annoying, but you kind of one or two instances. This was like every sort of 5 or 6 minutes, I was getting people come up, and I started counting in the end, and there was over 20 instances where somebody either tried to stroke the dog or interact with him, but not one person spoke to me. And actually, right at the end of the day, I was in a shoe shop, and a little boy came up and said, Can I say hello to your dog? And I was so pleased that actually if one person had finally done that, it's like, absolutely, of course he can. And it was in a safe environment. Jaeger was sat, his harness was down, and I was like, well, yeah, we're not moving around at the moment, so you're more than welcome to do it.
Yeah.
And that is one of the key messages, really. If the harness is up, the dog is certainly, if the dog certainly is moving and is clearly guiding me, that is an absolute sign that please, whilst it sounds in some ways a bit mean, but please ignore the dog.
I don't think so, Chris. Honestly, I don't think what you're asking for a lot there. That sounds awful. To be stopped 20 times when you're just trying to get around as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like I say, in many ways, I find it a little bit strange that people can come up and just start talking to the dog like I'm not there. It's almost like. You hear a lot these days about exclusion and things like that. It's like just completely excluding me from the conversation.
Yeah.
This person's clearly not important. I just want to say hello to the dog. And that, is unacceptable in the first instance, but then obviously to try and just distract the dog from his work, especially like you say, when you're trying to get on with your day. And there's a time and a place for it. So what I would say is if people would like to, meet the dogs and find out more about them, guide dogs, and us guide dog speakers, we're always really keen to hear from you guys. If you'd like a talk, whether it be like a school group or whether it even be in a business, I'm always more than happy to either do it over Teams these days, or whether you're actually happy for me to come in as well and actually speak, to anybody and give a talk about guide dogs, let you meet the dog as well. And yes, you can pop onto the Guide Dogs website. We can find out more information about that. But I have also done some supporting videos, and if you actually search for My Positive Vision on YouTube, you'd find out a little bit more about myself.
That's amazing, Chris, honestly. And I'm so sorry that you have to go through that as well. That sounds so just horrible. People just ignoring you and pretending that you're not even there. It's just basic decency, you'd think, to say hello first before you go petting the dog, especially when he's working. I always have a joke that whenever I see a guide dog, I never get too close. I'm like, excuse me, sir, I can see that you're at work there. I'm just going to pass you by over here. And I just feel very respectful towards guide dogs.
No, absolutely. And it's just, like you say, it's just a respect, element there.
Yeah.
And, like I say, there's plenty of times when don't get me wrong, if you came up and I was stood still, maybe stood outside a shop and waiting for somebody, the harness is down and I'm not actually working Jaeger at that specific moment in time, even if he did have his harness on the back, I'd be more than happy for you to come over and speak to me, obviously in the first instance, start a conversation, and if it leads towards, well, actually, can I say hello, then we can have that conversation. One thing I would say is some guide dog owners will be absolutely fine with it. Some may decline. And in those instances, again, just please be respectful that if we say no, it's not because we're trying to, stop people from making a fuss of the dogs and giving the dog some attention. It's sometimes, especially if the dog's only just recently qualified, and especially if the guide dog owner's a new guide dog owner, getting used to the process. And one of the hardest parts is you are putting your whole trust in that dog. So, your whole life essentially depends on it. And I guess if you want to put yourself in my shoes for a moment, if I'm walking down a side street heading towards a busy main road, I know Jaeger's job is to keep walking until he comes to that curb edge. As I start to come towards that busy main road, I'm obviously not necessarily going to see it because I am visually impaired, but I can hear the traffic. And as we start to approach it, I know my trust is in Jaeger, and I trust that I can walk confidently and he's going to stop. If you suddenly try and motion to the dog, try and stroke the dog, try and grab his attention, it can only take a split second for him to turn his head. He overshoots the curb, and obviously there's massive consequences, not just for myself, not just for the dog, but also the person driving the vehicle that, potentially could be involved in that accident.
Yeah.
So it is very much just thinking about all kind of, consequences, if you will. And I guess mainly just think more about than just yourself. I want to stroke this dog. He's lovely.
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Yes, they're super friendly, but think about everybody in the situation and what actually could happen.
You're so right, Chris. I mean, it's so dangerous, isn't it? And what it is people just absolutely not thinking of any of the consequences. It's really sad and a bit silly, actually, as well. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, as well. And also, I mean, Jaeger sounds like an amazing dog. Genuinely sounds like an amazing dog. Tell us a little bit about then, just sum up for us, if someone's listening right now and they're thinking, okay, what can I and can't I do? You were mentioning about the harness. What are the rules there?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people think, well, as soon as the harness is on, that's it. Obviously, we can't go near him. And in general, that kind of is the case. So once that harness is on, that's saying Jaeger is working, or any guide dog is working. At that point in time, the dog is very much thinking about how he's going to look after the guide dog owner. Now, once the harness is kind of raised up in the air, that is usually a sign. We'll then give a command with our hands to tell the dog to start moving. That basically means the dog is actually actively working and he's looking after me. Once we stop, if I've still got the harness in my hand and it's in the air, then chances are we're probably thinking about our next steps and where we're going to go. So he is still working and he knows the harness is up. Right, okay, we might be moving soon. Once I drop the harness onto his back, that usually is a sign that, okay, I'm going to stand for a minute. Now, that might actually sometimes mean I'm actually a little bit lost, trying to find my bearings. And in that instance, by all means, come and speak to us. Come and ask if we're okay. Come and ask actually if do we need any assistance. Many cases we might be fine, and we'll carry on our journey. We'll say thank you very much, for offering to help. But at that point, if you do strike up a conversation with me and the harness is down on his back, it might be that if you say, can I stroke him? I might say, oh, actually, on this occasion, yeah, because actually nice and chilled out. Yeah, of course you can. But again, because you've got that harness on, always ask. And if I say, actually, no, I'm sorry, on this occasion you can't, obviously accept that. But then the general rule is like once the harness comes off, so when he comes home, the harness comes off. When I get to the office at work, the harness comes off. And I'm always the first to say to people, you're more than welcome now to come and say hello, because he's finished his working day. And he loves some attention. He loves people.
Yeah, he's ready for a pet now. He's done his job. I love that.
Absolutely.
Chris, thank you so much for telling us the rules. Sorry for experiencing that as well. And hopefully this campaign, the Don't Dive on the Dog initiative from Guide Dogs, will help. And hopefully you'll see that people are just being a bit more considerate towards you when you're out and about. Again, thank you for your time, Chris. Chris Towers there from Bradford, speaker for Guide Dogs, who's experienced people distracting his dog when he's out in public. It's so simple. It's so easy. Just to ask, first of all, whether you are allowed to pet a dog. That's just general through life. That's just what you're supposed to do all the time. You're never supposed to dive on any dog and go pet the dog before you speak to the owner. Really interesting, and I always love hearing a different angle and what other people are going through, because that's not my experience, and it's not a lot of people's experience. So always good to hear from someone who's saying, actually, this isn't okay, but this is okay.